Hello everyone, I'm Andy Oakley, the leader of the One New Zealand Party. Today I'm going to talk about why it is vital that we have an economy that is managed to the benefit of the people, and also why we haven't had a government that knows how to do that for at least 40 years. Firstly, it's self-evident that we should have a government and an economy that is for the benefit of the people. To achieve this, collectively, we should endeavour to set up a national system which is beneficial, predictable and controllable. And if it isn't all of these three things, well then we'd have done a terrible job. As long ago as in the ancient city of Pompeii, they knew that a supply and demand system where the rulers issued currency or coins, and then to have a compulsory tax on that currency, would bind the state and the people in a beneficial fiduciary relationship. Now, the word fiduciary means that there is a duty to act for the benefit of the other party. Surely this is what we should expect from our government. Over time, rightly or wrongly, the economists agreed to limit or link the issuing of the currency to the amount of gold that the government had at their disposal. Economic theories were then developed to try and get some predictability and control over the economy. But these theories have never been accurate, and there's always been disagreement between the economists. After all, we know that most countries cannot create economic booms at will or predict or control economic crashes. So we have the historical evidence that practically no one can drive an economy properly to the benefit of the people. They don't know the difference between the brake and the accelerator, and they can barely steer it away from a crash when they see a big pothole on the road. If we look at New Zealand, we have a fiat money system. We democratically elect a government, and we also authorise the government to issue the sovereign New Zealand dollar into the economy. Just as in ancient Pompeii, we have laws that state people and businesses must pay tax in that sovereign currency. Like every other fiat money country, we have moved away from the gold standard many decades ago. So effectively, we have no limit on how much currency the government can issue. Unfortunately, the mindsets of our economists are still stuck in the gold standard limited money supply days, and that is how economics is taught practically everywhere. In New Zealand, the government are needlessly restricting the money supply and overtaxing people and businesses because they and their advisors don't understand how the economy really works. This is a very serious issue. I mean, people are dying in New Zealand through the lack of investment in many areas of the economy. Also, the medium to low wage workers are forced to borrow from overseas banks for anything over $200 because they're all overtaxed. The truth is we must pay tax to have an economy that benefits us because it creates a fiduciary relationship between the state and the people. That relationship is the fundamental principle and provides the framework for an economy, which is the economic and supply and demand cycle, i.e. the government issue currency into the economy and then tax a percentage of it back out again. The sad fact is that most economists don't know that, and they have instead bought into the old models where they are taught that tax is to create reserves for government spending. But imagine if you were authorised to create money and deposit into people's bank accounts through nothing more than a keystroke on a computer, which is the case for Grant Robinson, and you were so stupid that you said, no, we don't have enough money, which is exactly what the current Labour government is saying and what nearly every past government has said for at least 40 years. What they have done, and I can only think they've done this in ignorance, is turn the use of the economy around so that it benefits the government instead of the people. They believe that to spend, the government must take or tax currency from people and businesses so that they have the money to run the government and pay for infrastructure. So they've altered or switched the demand and supply cycle from what started out as the government issuing currency and taxing to create the fiduciary relationship, to just taking our earnings and stating that they must do that if we want roads and hospitals. People are still free to exchange units of work in other ways too if they wish. They've always had that right. But to maintain the fiduciary relationship between the state and the people, every adult and business will always have to pay a certain amount of tax in the sovereign currency, because that requires them to engage in some activity whereby they get currency to pay the tax. This is another fundamental principle of the economy. That desire to get the currency fuels economic activity and capitalism. It's very important to know that in the digital economy we have today, which is not pegged to the gold standard, the tax that we pay doesn't fund anything. Taxing is only done to maintain the fiduciary relationship, and also can be used to control bad behaviour, such as raising the price of smokes, for instance, or address major economic imbalances, like all the money ending up in Google's pockets, for instance. Our government have a responsibility to the people, us, to issue the correct amount of currency. However, currently they don't take that responsibility serious, because the amount of currency they are issuing, for the amount of currency they are issuing, they are taxing way too high. In other words, they are not managing the economy in a beneficial way for the citizens of New Zealand, which is what we elected them to do. The One New Zealand Party is the only party who understand the fundamental economic principles required to create an economy which is beneficial, predictable and controllable. We will abolish GST as it hinders trade. We'll make the first $30,000 of wage and salary earners' income tax-free, and we will lower the corporate tax rate from 28% to a flat 20%. This economic stimulus may be your only hope for financial security in the future. So join us. Donate for a secure future. I've been Andy Oakley. Noho ora mai.